Hey, FlashPoint Army, are you looking for truth and news all in the spirit of faith? Well, don't forget to click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to stay connected. Not a part of the FlashPoint Army? Sign up for the latest email updates at govictory.com/FP signup and join us as we stand for truth and freedom. Let me show you. This is when things started a few days ago at Columbia University. But Rick, I want to get you to comment on the same thing. What we're dealing with here is just absolutely staggering. What's going on at these universities that are supposed to be, the places of diversity and inclusion and we love everybody and everybody, but it sure doesn't seem to be that way.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, everything that Luke said, 100%. By the way, shocking that he would choose a school he could actually afford and actually pay his own school loans off. I mean, that was just weird, Gene. I don't know that anybody talks like that anymore. Where'd this kid come from? But by the way, I agree 100% with everything he said. And remember what he said about, this thing going around about the poison ivy schools. It's virtually every college campus in America, even a lot of the ones with Christian in the name, that this poison of cultural Marxism has been poured in. So I agree with him. I'm not shocked by it at all. This is absolutely to be expected. This is the outcome. This is the effect from the cause of cultural Marxism that's been poured in the minds of these kids. And they've been taught to put everybody in groups. And the Palestinians, that's a group that all of them are to be treated the same. So Hamas, doesn't matter that they're murdering, doesn't matter that they're raping. They're part of the group that is supposed to be special and protected. And the Jews are now in a group that has, by defending their homeland, become the bad guys. So now all Jews are bad. So that's just the way Marxism works. We should absolutely expect it, but we should absolutely say no to it. And even on the Ivy League thing, Gene, I'm assuming you saw this where, they're now going to replace their president and they've chosen someone that's steeped in DEI, a big part of DEI, and that's going to be the person that helps to choose the new president. It's just the whole thing is messed up. This is why we've said it on the program over and over and over again. Do not send your kids to these colleges.
Right.
You are rolling the dice. You're actually sending your kid into an environment where more than likely they're going to reject their faith. I'm just saying that based on the numbers that's coming out of these results. There's no need for it. Why would you want to go $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in debt to get a degree that's practically worthless at this point? Newt Gingrich wrote a book like 22 years ago about the fact that he thought it would be sooner than now that the diploma was going to begin to mean nothing. It's what do you actually know? Are you teachable? Do you bring skills to the table? Teach your kids hard work. Teach them to be teachable. Teach them to seek out wisdom. Teach them to read God's word and get wisdom and then apply it and then find what they love doing and then get them out there interning, apprenticing for somebody at 18 years old. Do not send them off to one of these colleges where they're going to have their minds warped by these very Marxists, and then they'll be one of the ones marching in the streets like this. Literally pro-death for Hamas.
Yeah. All right, let me show you what Ted Cruz said. He goes, wow, truly stunning. Read what the Orthodox rabbi at Columbia, Barnard, wrote to Jewish students. Return home as soon as possible. Columbia and New York City will not protect your safety. Radical leftist anti-Semitism is a sickness that's destroying our university. Let me bring in Liz Joy. She's blogger, speaker, minister, former congressional candidate from New York. Great friend here. Welcome back, Liz. Let me get your take on what you're seeing right there in your home state. What's happening this weekend and today?
Well, we have the largest Jewish population in the country. We have 2.2 million Jews that live here in New York State. Can you imagine the fear of the Jewish students being told to stay home here in New York because it's too dangerous for them to go on campus today as Passover begins? I can't imagine what it's like to be them. It's disgusting to me. It's vile. It's amazing also, really, that the Columbia President Shafiq, told the Jewish students, to stay home, that she wasn't able to protect them. It was too dangerous. And yet we have hundreds of professors at Columbia that walked out onto the quad today, late this afternoon, to stand with the Palestinian students who were shouting pro-Hamas statements. She was able to protect them. Columbia University blocked a Jewish professor. They took away his pass today so that he could not access the buildings. He had to stay outside of the campus while they said they couldn't protect him, but they were protecting these hundreds of professors out on the quad, hundreds of students.
Liz, let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you. Go back to that picture, guys, because I want everybody at home to see this. The demonstrators are way over there in front of the building. You see that? This is the staff and faculty who did a walkout in support of the protesters. Now, this says everything I need to know right here about Columbia. They walk out because in support of the protesters. Is it really this bad, Liz, or are we seeing, or are they just doing this because they feel peer pressure to walk out? Is it really that bad at these Ivy League schools?
It is that bad. Yes, it is. And I think that it's very sad and it's that bad. And I will also tell you that many of the presidents of the Ivy League schools are not from America. I mean, they're from other countries that come here. And I'm going to say something that may be very controversial, but I'm going to say when in America since 1973, you have killed over 60 million children, American children in the womb. Who do you have to go to these colleges? You have to import students from other countries that aren't born and raised here, that don't have an allegiance to America, that haven't been taught about the United States Constitution and what the United States has gone through to be able to give, Americans freedom. You have to import students that are coming, many of them coming from very, very wealthy families who are then, you're getting these professorships, also who have a lot of money, and they're being indoctrinated. And that's the truth. That's the truth. I will also say for people out there, right. Being from New York, I will tell you, the majority of New Yorkers don't feel any anti-Semitism at all. I grew up in New York. We never even heard about it. It wasn't anything that was even talked about. But this is happening at the Ivy League schools. This is not the wonderful New Yorkers that live here, that love New York, that love, the people that have always welcomed the largest Jewish population in the entire country.
Let me show you this. This is from a Jewish professor there at Columbia. He writes, earlier today, Columbia University refused to let me on campus. Why? Because they cannot protect my safety as a Jewish professor. This is 1938. Rick Green, your thoughts? 1938, it sure seems a lot like it.
Yeah, we were talking right before going on the air about Letter of the American Church and Eric Metaxas's book, the documentary. I mean, we are living out the 1930s in Germany. Everything Liz said, 100%. Only thing I would add to it, it's not just the Ivy League. I just want to keep going back to that, folks. It's virtually every college campus in America. The only way we're going to defund the left in America is to defund the universities. I've been saying that for 10 years. I'm hoping that these kind of instances will finally make people wake up and demand that your state legislatures stop funding the state universities in your state. If people want to go to college, they want to go get a degree, they can earn the money to go. They can borrow the money from somebody to go. It's time for us to stop paying. We're paying for all of this. You're paying for it at home with your taxes. I'm paying for it with my taxes. Stop. Demand of your Congress, stop funding this. Stop forgiving student loans, which just simply means you and I are paying for their gender studies degrees at Columbia and everywhere else. Defund the left by defunding the universities. They are not a blessing to America. They are a curse to America now. And like Luke said earlier, they're going to say we're anti-intellectual. Wrong. The kids that avoid this stuff and actually study and actually do the real homework and actually learn how to be intellectual, they're going to be the ones that actually run this country 10, 15, 20 years from now, not these yahoos at these college campuses learning nothing but, rote Marxism.
Yeah, in fact, and it has jumped over to Yale. Let me show you this group of Yale students form a human chain to block a Jewish student from entering the university. We got the B-roll. Echoes 1939. Okay, Luke, you see this? I mean, this is, I don't know what you would call this other than, it's on the edge of being violent right here. I mean, obviously nobody's throwing fists or fire, but, you can tell something could erupt here at any moment.
Well, the sick and detestable irony of this all is that some of the same leftists who are doing what you just put on the screen and are yelling anti-Semitic tropes and things like that are the same people who called MAGA Republicans Nazis over the last few years. And now they have taken the mantle of this horrific movement and used it as a centerpiece of their own movement. And these postmodern or these cultural Marxists say that their ultimate goal is to completely eradicate racism, and that if we reach utopia, that's exactly what's going to happen. Well, you see right here and right now on these college campuses that that's exactly the opposite of what's actually going on. Funny thing about Marxism and communism and socialism, the very things they say they're trying to avoid, they have to fully embrace in order to try to reach their supposed utopia and the complete fulfillment of their ideology. The other part you just put up about the professors who are going out there and marching in solidarity with the students, we were just talking about it a second ago, saying that the overwhelming majority of these professors are liberal and progressive individuals. But just look at what happened in the last few months. Back in October of 2023, we saw a Cornell professor saying that the attack from Hamas on Israel exhilarated him and that he was thrilled about what was happening. We saw evidence of people on these other institutions in October saying that the things that happened to Israel were justified and that it should have happened. And then we saw complete bias against people who were Jewish on these college campuses. I believe Cornell was one of them, and that professors were being investigated for it. And Gene, that's just the month and the few months after the Hamas terrorist attacks where people were actually investigating and looking into it and in the media cycle. Who knows what else what other things these people said when people weren't looking and watching. So true. And as we know, what we're seeing here is the result of an election. It's not just a cute saying to keep bringing to you. Elections have consequences. This really is what we've had. And what you're seeing here with these Ivy League schools didn't just happen this week or this month. It's been growing and growing and growing while we've been sending our kids and the ones that could even get in and pay this money. Like you said, we're paying for this. In fact, there's a cartoon that Bronco did, comically incorrect. I want you to say death to America, but pay off my student loan first. Biden 2024. You know, Liz, I mean, this is exactly what you're seeing right there in your home state.
It is. And, you know, frankly, I'd like to know how many of these students are here on visas, on foreign visas, because one of the things that I said earlier today was that, you know, many of these things have turned violent, these protests. Columbia, there was violence that was happening there. We know that there was violence happening at Yale where a student had something shoved right into their eye. I believe it was a Palestinian flag that was shoved into the student's eye, and they ended up going to the hospital. But we've got Columbia now. We also have, you know, NYU. We have protests there. And one of the things that I'd like to know is how many of these students are actually foreign students here. What Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, needs to do is find out what students are here on these visas, and if they have been active in any of these violent protests, they need to be deported immediately. The other thing that Columbia University did today is they made a statement that they did not want the New York Police Department on their campus at all, that they would handle it. So the New York Police Department today gave a press conference and said, Columbia doesn't want us on their campus. We can't go onto private property. They said they want to handle it ourselves. Now, later on, about 4 hours later, they did get called to go on to the campus, but it's because Columbia let it get out of control. And I think that we're going to be seeing many of these uprisings across the United States. I think it's going to spread, frankly, like wildfire here in New York and across the campuses all summer long. I think this is only going to heat up. And if I was the governor of New York, I would be immediately, empowering the New York Police Department. I would probably call in the New York National Guard to have this thing squashed out immediately, no tolerance. And I would remove any students here on foreign visas that have partaken in any of these violent protests. They would be out of the country and not allowed to return.
Rick, I don't know if you saw AOC's comment today. AOC's comment was that I applaud this, there was actually, the word was out that this protests were dancing and pizza, and that it really was mild, and I applaud all the young people. Now, this is coming and I want you to speak to this, Rick. These Harvard and Yale started with a theological seminary. That's their roots. And look where we are now.
All of these Ivy Leagues. Yeah, all of them started as seminaries and a place for the ministry and a place to raise up leaders for this country, both in the spiritual and the political world. Most of our universities, even outside the Ivy League, were started for that purpose, and they have become the exact opposite. Gene, I got to say, just stepping back, the bigger picture of education in general, we are living a lie right now in America, and most parents have bought the lie. It starts with the kids when they're young. Parents think they need to hand the kids over to the local public school because those teachers and those administrators know so much more, and they're so much better prepared to raise our children. That is a lie. You are far better off raising your children yourself, homeschooling them, maybe private school, but definitely not public school. We spend about $1,000 or $1,500 a kid when we homeschool them. We spend about $5,000 a kid when we private school them. We spend about $20,000 a kid when we public school them. Who do you think does a better job? Everybody watching knows the results. And you know, the homeschool kids do the best on all the tests and end up being the best at whatever they go do. The private school kids are next, and then the public school kids dead last. It's the same in college. We waste all that money sending our kids off for 4 years to find themselves when they could be doing an apprenticeship with somebody or coming to Patriot Academy for a year and staying with us for a year and really learning what they want to do with their life. Gene, I just think the bigger picture has to be captured here. Use this as a catalyst where people are seeing these images. They're seeing the cause, the effect. They need to know what the cause is. It's the Marxism in the schools, but it's the elementary schools, the high schools, and the colleges. We need a revolution in education, and it's happening. Homeschooling's tripling. Private schools are starting up all over the country.
That's right.
People are figuring out government schools are a poison to our children, and we have got to turn this thing around now. We are running out of time.
We are. Let me read this. Tim Scott said this: the anti-Semitism we see raging on college campuses is despicable. Any student who's advocating for murder and terrorism, you should be expelled from campus. Any student on a foreign visa who calls for genocide, which is what we're seeing, should be deported, and you're gone. And every university that lets itself become a megaphone for evil should lose every single dime of federal money. I agree 100%. Well said, Tim Scott. Before we go on to the next one, let's just pray. We got to pray about this because this is something so important to the future of America. If you and I don't stop and go, okay, God, this is where we've gone wrong. We're asking you to come into the situation. So agree with me in prayer. Heavenly Father, right now we bring this whole situation up. It's just part of the issue. But Lord, I pray over every single student, every faculty member, whether they agree with us or not. Lord, I pray that you pull all and you draw all men to you. Help them see beyond the realm of their own despicable thoughts and processes to their fellow man. Let us come together in unity and be able to reach across the lines and love each other for who we are and our diversity. Now, Father, I pray for each one of these schools that their leadership will be arrested in their thoughts. And if they do not change, that they're removed in the name of Jesus. We call it done. Amen. We bring in the man, the myth, the legend, Lou Dobbs. Lou, good to have you back, sir. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thanks for the invitation, Gene. Great to be with you.
Always great. All right, so Lou, I told the people before you came on, I want to get your take on what you saw happen today with all of these Ivy League schools and all the protests. Did you ever think you'd see the day where anti-Semitism was lauded and praised as a good thing?
I never imagined it, and I couldn't have imagined it, and I don't think any of us really could. To see these thousands and tens of thousands of students in Ivy League colleges, and they consider themselves, and frankly, they have been elite schools for 400 years. We're talking about almost 400 years, and we're talking about what are supposed to be some of the best minds in the country, teaching and as well as learning as students. And what we are witnessing is sheer ignorance in a university setting, which is supposed to be about expanding knowledge and expanding the education of those young people. And what it's turned to is ugly, and it is, to me, outrageous that our universities are tolerating that kind of abuse on their campuses, because while we're watching tens of thousands, there are hundreds of thousands of students who are having to put up with such ignorance and watch such ignorance being tolerated, which in and of itself, to me, is a sin.
Oh, so true. So true. All right. You know, we've said before in this show, elections have consequences. So let's look at the race between President Trump and President Biden. Let me show you this clip from CNN. Watch.
This is viewed favorably across Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. In the 2020 exit polls, what do we see? 50% of voters view Joe Biden on average favorably in those states, compared to just 45% for Donald Trump. Look at the Joe Biden trend line where he is now. Joe Biden is far less liked than he was 4 years ago. Just 43% of voters now view Joe Biden favorably in these states. And Donald Trump, despite everything that has happened, is actually slightly more liked. 47% favorable rating. So this isn't just the lesser of two evils that's going on. The fact is that Donald Trump is, in fact, better liked than he was 4 years ago, and is better liked than Joe Biden is right now in these battleground states. It's pretty gosh darn clear.
Pretty gosh darn clear, Lou. I mean, that's CNN. I mean, that's your old place you used to work. I mean, when they say that, I'm like, the spread is much bigger. Sorry, that's my thoughts. That's not anybody else's thoughts or the thoughts of this network. That's Gene Bailey. All right, Lou, I want to get your take. Do you think the spread is wider, or is that pretty accurate?
No, I think the spread is much wider. Remember, as you pointed out, everybody that is CNN. And by the way, I was fired by CNN, so that's a badge of honor, if I may brag a little bit.
Yes.
The reality is that's a far left organization, and one of the things about CNN itself is that they brought in a guy who ran the New York Times and the BBC to rehabilitate the place from its Marxist dim leanings, and all they've done is lean farther into the wind, I mean, they're hopeless right now. It's just ridiculous that they consider themselves an objective network when they are precisely the same bunch of Marxists they were 2 years ago.
Yeah, all right. Rick, I want to show you this. The Fox Biden track record. Watch.
You got your hands full, and I was looking back at the track record for President Biden. Here's what sticks out. The Afghanistan withdrawal was a mess. We failed to stop Putin from going into Ukraine. The war with Israel and Hamas has been absolutely dreadful and destructive. Again, it's the first time Iran has aimed at Israel. China's military buildup is substantial. And that was just this morning what I came up with. Can you argue that American strength and persuasion is better today than it was 4 years ago globally?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100% I can, Bill, and I can do that very comfortably after serving for as long as I did in uniform. I'll tell you, this is a president who understands American leadership on the world stage. He has devoted additional resources, not just militarily, but diplomatically, economically, around the world to advance our national security interests. I
love a good comedy. Rick, I mean, Kirby, he says, of course, it's been a great run. Your thoughts?
Well, what a shame to all those who serve us in uniform for him to use that and then turn around and lie to the American people based on that. What an embarrassment, man. We need more patriots like Lou Dobbs, man. Lou, I'm thrilled that you got fired by CNN. It's unfortunate for the rest of the country because now they only have leftists. I wish you were still there to be a voice of reason for the rest of the country. But thank God we got you over at Frank's Speech. So, yeah, Gene, listen, if the truth is told, if people get all the information, Trump is going to win big, hugely, no doubt about it. But we know the truth is not going to be told through most of these outlets, and we know that they're going to try to steal it. We're going to see more and more of the mail-in fraud and everything else. So all things being equal, we could almost coast. But all things are not equal, therefore we will not coast, and we're going to have to fight tooth and nail in the trenches for every single vote and to guarantee integrity in every area that we possibly can. There's going to be cheating. We just have to limit that as best we can so that we can get the actual outcome of what the American people want, because they know Biden's been an absolute disaster. And once again, I'll say it. Biden, no, not once again. I'm going to say it a million times between now. Biden will not be the nominee. So all these polls are meant to make us comfortable. He will not be the nominee. So we need to be fighting and making sure people know the truth about Donald Trump so that regardless of who they switch out with in August, Donald Trump still wins in November.
And I agree. I still agree with you, Rick, which is kind of scaring me that I'm agreeing with you. But I do believe...
You should be nervous, man.
I should be. I should be very nervous. All right. Of course, I can't shut out this show, close it out, without talking about the Trump trial. Speaking of shams, let me show you the latest about the prosecutors. Watch this.
Points. Who was leading the opening statement today against the president?
Matthew Colangelo, who used to be
the number 3 under Merrick Garland at the Department of Justice. He left that cushy job at the Department of Justice to go be a line prosecutor in a city office. That shows how coordinated this is. It's not just him. In fact, there was a law firm here in New York City that's known as a Democrat law firm that handed over a few of its attorneys to help bring charges against Donald Trump. This is part of a widespread and coordinated effort, and I think everyone kind of knows it.
You think? All right. So, Luke, why would somebody that was the number 3 spot in the Biden's DOJ decide he's going to go take a low-level job in D.A. Bragg's office? Why would he do that?
Well, you have to take a step back and look at the totality of the lawfare that's been happening against President Trump. They tried to do this years in advance leading up to this election. They tried to make sure that he was kept in courtrooms, that he was kept off the campaign trail, because they couldn't keep him off the ballot. Back in the midterm elections, they tried to get members of Congress kicked off the ballot for being, quote unquote, insurrectionists, when that wasn't the case, and those cases fell flat. So when that failed, they started going into the courtroom repeatedly. He was sued. He was charged over and over and over again. They tried to go after him because they could not keep him off the campaign trail or out of the upper echelons of the polls and the minds of the American people. And I believe that when it comes to November, the American people are going to witness a backlash against the mainstream media and every element of lawfare that has been going against Donald Trump up to this point. And we're going to prove to them that they are not the ones that are in charge. The elites in Washington, the establishment, they're no longer in control anymore. It's all up to the American people who are going to choose the person that the swamp hates the most.
You believe that, Lou Dobbs? Is it who the swamp hates the most is President Trump?
Oh, there's no question about that. And they fear him as well. And the reality is that as bad as everything looks now, and it is bad, and Rick is exactly right. Anybody who thinks that this is going to be a cakewalk is missing the point entirely. Right now, these Marxist Dems control the deep state. They control every agency of the federal government. Every agency is in their control. There is no effective oversight from this Congress. There is no effective oversight from the Senate. And the reality is that we have watched them take over this nation. And it is in this election that we will decide the future of the constitutional republic. And if every one of us does not exert every ounce of energy we have remaining to winning that election and supporting Donald Trump, I am telling you, it is game over. There are a lot of, I want to be an optimist, and I am, because I think we will prevail, but not without a great exertion by the American people.
Lou, do you think, do you agree with Rick and I mean, I'd really like to get your honest opinion here. Do you think Biden will make it, or will they swap him out for somebody else before the election?
I just don't know. He looks to me as if he's faltering farther and farther away from anything resembling good mental health. But at the same time, he has surprised us all before because he is jacked up on something that can bring him back from what are weeks of, it seems, being in almost a coma to being very effective on a debate stage. I've never seen the likes of it. He gave a State of the Union speech, while terrible, was far better than anything I ever imagined he could in his, in his mental state and medical condition.
Right. I'm still laughing at your comment. Jacked up on something. All right. Let me show you this because it is all about election interference. Watch this.
This is, again, back to the sham trial. He'd be doing 2 rallies a day. You know that he loves getting out and talking to real Americans and real people, and he's campaigning on the issues. And one of the reasons why this is election interference is because when President Trump campaigns, he talks about inflation. He talks about the border. He talks about public safety. He talks about stopping the wars and stopping the killing. These are the issues that are matter to the voters. And so every day that the Democrats can keep him sitting in the courtroom is a win for them. And so it is absolutely, it's election interference, and it is so unfair to the public and to our country to have this happen.
Yeah, it is unfair. All right. So, Rick, I want to show you what happened on the House floor in Congress. Look at all of these people waving their Ukrainian flags after a banner bill was signed into law there, that they're going to give. I mean, this is Congress. What are we to think?
It's turned into the Ukrainian Congress, I guess. I just want to. You guys know I'm a glass half full guy. I'm always super. My flash talks are optimistic. Y'all know I'm a Joshua and Caleb kind of guy. And I'm going to pile on to what Lou said, because it's not just those federal agencies. It's virtually every state agency, virtually every state, even the Secretary of State offices, even in red states, the bureaucrats are blue. So just think about that. It's all these entertainment, journalism, all these different areas of the culture. The left dominates, and that's what we're up against. And so the American people have to rise up above all of that. And part of what's going to make it really hard, Gene, is that the legal system is also taken over by these Marxists. We had Rebecca on last week. We talked about what they're doing in D.C. and the way that they've just taken over that whole system as well. So just know that those are the odds against us. Therefore, we must have a Joshua and Caleb attitude of saying, yes, there's giants in the land. Yes, there's fortified cities, but we can retake those cities. But that means we have to gird up, man. We got to get the armor of God on. We got to put that belt of truth on, and we got to be willing to go out there and do these things. I love what Lou said, man. It's going to take every ounce we've got, not only of courage, but we've got to have the action necessary to step out there. Because think about it. Trump's literally sitting in this courtroom. So that's now we've got to step in for him. We've got to go out and campaign and do rallies and knock on doors and do all that stuff, because he's not going to be out there as much as what he would have been. And not only for Trump, of course, but all the way down the ballot. Anyway, I just want people to recognize this is an epic, epic battle. And you know what? That's cool. I'm glad to not live in pale and timid times, as Reagan said. We're blessed to live at an epic inflection point in history, and we, the FlashPoint Army, get to be the ones that are going to make a difference. That's pretty exciting.
It is exciting.